Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing baseball. With the season kind of winding down for the season of 2025, there is still some fall ball going along. So this is for the parents to kind of prepare themselves over the winter months to realize what is expected of players and to be realistic about the performance of your children within the game. Now, this isn't just for the parents of the ball players, this is also for the coaches. So, we're going to go over some of the recommendations. All of this information is AI provided information. So, don't take it as an absolute. These are the recommendations for averages recognized and practiced across the different leagues, whether it be the American Little League to the Cal Ripken Series, Babe Ruth, you name it. Every different organization has different set of rules, and even within travel ball, depending on the region you're in, these numbers are not going to be exact to every single thing. They're an average. So, with that, today we're going to be talking about hitting and the field size. Because once again, this is not meant in any kind of derogatory way whatsoever. Many parents will think that their player is an absolute all-star because they can hit the ball on the outside of the dirt. They're able to hit the ball off the tee with T-ball or T-hit series. We're going to get into a series of videos here describing what the averages are and what the minimum expectations are for the averages. So if you have a tryout that's coming out and you believe that your child is an exceptional player, let's go to the reality of what is just the average across the industry. So we're not talking about the Little League World Series here. This is going to be for every player in that 6 to 18-year-old range. Now, we're not going to dive into necessarily the high school or college level type play. That's all going to be different across the entire board. So this is going to be very specific just from the 6 to approximately 18-year-old U ball, okay, 18-year-old ball. So here's a list of the averages that AI has provided of the distances your player should be able to hit, since this is just the number one video. Now, within the description from AI, it is not differentiating the distances depending on the material or the type of bat that you're using. So whether it's wood, the USA stamp logo, USSSA, or BBCOR. They do give away a little bit once you start getting into the 8U play. You'll notice that the difference in hitting distance for average actually gets lower. So that is going to be the difference between some of your BBCOR composite or alloy bats going back to wooden bats once again. So the lower numbers, that's a general use of averages between whatever bat material or design that you have. Excuse me, I have my notes written down on a notepad. I've transferred my notes onto the board. Now, T-ball, once again, depending on what league you're in, they might require you to use wooden bats, or they'll allow you to use anything that the players can swing. Don't go out and spend a tremendous amount of money on a player in the T-ball levels of play. Okay, and a very expensive piece of equipment is not necessarily going to improve or prove their performance level. That can be said even through the lower levels of Pee-wee to the minors to coach pitch organizations, recreational ball. That's all going to be up to what's ever available. So sometimes the actual baseball leagues will provide you the equipment. If you want to go out on your own and purchase the newest fad, that is entirely up to you as long as it fits within the regulations that the league enforces. There's a lot of dispute as far as what are the rules are and how much they actually enforce it. If there's no umpires and the coaches aren't checking the equipment, okay, the equipment's open to whatever kind of use you want to do. So again, just kind of take a look at this, go through it. For 8U through 12U players, it's expected on average, according to AI, to be able to hit between 60 to 100 feet. with 8U players being at 60, 12U being at 100. 13U players, again, it's going to be more in that range of 150 to 200 feet. 14 through 16U, 200 feet to 300 feet. 17U, 300 to 350. 18U, 250 to 300. That's, again, the shift between your composite or alloy bats going back to a full 100% wooden bat. Now again, these are just general numbers. If you have a player at the 13U level that is hitting at 250 feet, that does not necessarily mean that they're an outstanding all-star player. Okay, we'll be getting into that because on the right side of this board, in the right side column, I'm going to actually be mentioning the sizes of the fields recognized by the Little League organization. Once again, these are averages, and depending on what your area or what your league has available within field sizes, it's not going to be exact. And even some of the times, the lower levels, say from 9U or younger, they can actually put in temporary fences or move bases to a smaller area to shift around the distances within the field. So again, just be realistic. This is the information that I've looked up myself as a parent, saying, you know, I believe my child is an outstanding player, but what are the averages? And these are not the distances they're going to hit every single ball. Obviously, they get ground balls, or if they're popping them up, they're not going to go that distance. These are a general number. That's the farthest. If they make good contact with the ball and have gone through with their proper mechanics of the swing, that's the distance they should be able to hit it. Now, I have run into multiple children that can exceed these numbers. So again, just in my defense here, these are AI generated numbers, not my numbers, because I would have to say the numbers in reality are jacked up at least 50 feet from what they're showing here. Now, for instance, if we're to compare these AI generated numbers to what's occurred in the latest 2025 Little League World Series, obviously those are some of the best kids in our nation or even in the world, and they make these numbers look, exaggerated by comparison. So again, these are just average numbers. If you're trying to improve from one year to the next, look at these numbers and use that as a guideline to basically rate yourself. So instead of being that daddy ball thinking, or within travel ball, my player is going to be outstanding and they do really good in their region, but then they get to the state and all of a sudden they start to struggle a little bit more. And then if they make it to regionals, they're going to be suffering. Okay. So just be realistic. Something that, again, is just keeping you grounded within reality. These are the average numbers provided by AI. Now, field sizes. Again, whether the distances are averages they can hit, the field sizes don't follow the exact same platform. So there isn't a different field size between 8U and 12U and 13U. They can actually be playing on the exact same field as, say, your high school players. It's not always going to be the exact same. With future development projects going on right now across the United States, they are starting to build the new stadiums or new diamonds according to the age of the players intended to play there. Or if you are part of an organization that has multiple fields, the fields will be designed around the age groups that will play on them. So again, from your 8U to 12U, the bases are going to be approximately 50 feet apart. But they can extend to even to the point where they're 70 feet apart. T-ball or recreational type 2 ball, if they actually put down the portable bases, they're not actually grounded into the ground. 50 feet is the approximate size that they use. Once you start getting into 8U, the numbers can grow from 50 to 70 feet spacing between the bases. There's also, excuse me, not in this video, but we'll be covering, there's actually distances of where a home plate has to be from the backstop. Once you start getting into ball where there's an actual position for the catcher, and it's a competitive level according to Little League, there has to be a certain distance from the backstop to the actual home base. Again, opening the field of play. For the pitching mound, it can be anywhere from 38 to 46 feet for ages of 13U and younger. Again, it can vary back and forth. Multiple organizations will actually have a portable base, or they'll have multiple bases. They don't necessarily have a permanent mound created within the diamond that all the pitchers have to go from. Again, each different organization is going to be placing them something different. So again, don't let the numbers fool you. If you're practicing to become more of that competitive pitcher, or your child or student is trying to practice for the actual games for Little League, that's the minimum, 38 feet. Okay, so that's going to start in the 8U through approximately 12U, and then anywhere up to 46 feet. So if they're practicing, even at home, always try to go to the longer distance. Okay, always try to practice at the longer distance to challenge them and get them warmed up. If they go to a field that has smaller dimensions, it's going to seem like a piece of cake for them. There's a huge difference, just from experience, that if you're pitching from 38 feet compared to 46, a player can be deceived. Okay, again, as a parent, maybe within daddy ball, so on and so forth, the travel ball, if the players are pitching from 38 feet, they might seem like they're outstanding. They have good control of the ball. They're throwing things into the strike zone consistently. Once they jump back to 46 feet, that will all change. So always try to go the largest or longest distance in order to improve on performance and control. For the fence, outfield fence, of both T-ball through approximately the 12U level, the outfield fence can be anywhere from 150 to 200 feet. Now again, depending on the organization, whether you're in rec ball, whatever baseball field already exists in order to carry out the practices and games, the fence is normally permanent. So temporary fences can be brought in to shorten that distance. Now, if you do a comparison, knowing the size of the field, the outfield fence of being 150 to 200 feet, at what point in the average batting distance are kids going to be capable of hitting an outfield home run? Okay, not until 13U, right? According to the averages. So if you have a player younger than 13 that is consistently hitting home runs over a 200-foot fence, you know they're above average, okay? That's above average, but that does not mean that they're a complete all-star, okay? Just remember that. Again, this is kind of a reality check. All of our players deserve to have the attention, but if you're trying to be competitive and believe that you have a future superstar, realize the size and the capabilities of the player. These are just the average numbers. So if you have somebody that does a little bit more, there's plenty of other players across the nation, around the world, that are also accomplishing more than that feat. You're going to hear size comparisons when it comes to the field. Now, this information does not necessarily line up with this side of the graph. So when I write this down here, don't mistake it as being for the 14 and 16U. A 50-70 field designation stands for two different things: that the pitching mound is at 50 feet and the bases are 70 feet apart. So when you hear those abbreviations used, that is what is describing the distance of the bases and the pitching mound to home plate. That is not specific to one age group. Again, going by Little League descriptions, a 50-70 is used in the approximate 13 to 16U competition. Your travel ball organizations, your legions, they may vary from that amount. These are Little League averages, so on and so forth. They can go anywhere from 50 to 60. "50 feet to 60 feet and 6 inches for the baseball mound or the actual plate distance from home plate." Again, that'll start at approximately the 14 to 18U. At some point in there, according to Little League, as far as I can tell, they're not very specific. Again, it's going to fluctuate to whatever field they have available to them. At approximately the 17 to 18U age level, they're stepping out from the alloy or composite bats into the wooden bats once again. So you notice the drop in the distances, but the field gets bigger. The field then goes to a 90-foot. 90-foot base distance separation and a 60-foot 6 inches mound position. Now again, in this situation, most of the fields are going to be a permanent structure. They're not going to have the adjustable bases. Some of the the more current constructed baseball fields are actually going to have a pitching mound that can be moved, especially with artificial type fields. They can basically just pick up the mat and turn it around to go from 38 feet to that 68 feet, and depending on where they put the mat down. They also have portable mound systems created either out of plywood or fiberglass composites to where they can place the mound at whatever distance. It's not going to necessarily be centralized between the first and second base or home and second. It can be altered. So again, just use those numbers just as a reality of what to prepare for, what to practice at, so you're prepared to go into whatever league that might present itself the next coming year. Now, going by the Little League description, again, when it's just research as being the mound position, it doesn't break it up by the 8U through 18U designation. It actually uses the Little League variations of minors and majors. Yes, it's confusing. Little League throughout the years has changed what age groups are included with the different designations of play. Previously, and it's something that's been carried over, it's not necessarily noticed anymore. The players from 5 years old up until 8 years old are in that approximately that Little League, just Little League. Other groups may call them Pee-wees, might be just with the Babe Ruth. Once they go over to 9U, then they move up to the Cal Ripken series. Every organization uses a different designation to determine which is going to be the rule sets and so on and so forth. Little League Baseball used the Little League, minors, and then majors as the three groups of players and their age groups. For Little League itself, the mounds are at 35 feet. And that's going to be based off the 50-foot base separation. For juniors, the base mound is going to be moved to 40 feet. Okay, you can see we're kind of moving up into the 13U area, and the outfield distances are still at 200 feet. For seniors, the base mound is going to be at 43 feet. So once again, you see that there's a discrepancy between the Little League definition of what's the expected mound distance compared to other organizations or even to high school. Because now once you get into high school, now you start throwing in the WIAA regulations on top of what's recognized by the Major League Little League Baseball organization. So again, once you reach that 14U, be surprised that whatever type of baseball you're participating in, it's going to get much larger. It's going to be much more competitive. So be realistic with your players when they're competing at 8U. You might think it's all for development and let the kids have fun and that they have time to develop. Between 8U and 12U, 4 years, they're going to be playing on the same size fields. They're going to be expected to be hitting the same distance. But then to jump into high school level play, you notice that the distance of expected hitting more than doubles. And the fields also add an additional 150 feet to the outfield fence. So again, between 8U and 12U, there has to be some major improvements in performance. They might be an outstanding 8U player, but if they don't continue to improve at that rate until they get to the 13U, they're not going to be able to be that same outstanding player at the 13U level or high school years. Think about it, folks. In 4 years, your 8U player, your Pee Wee or Little League player might be performing just like everybody else without any additional training, so on and so forth. But by the time they get into the high school or even junior high levels, competition starts to get really turned on. And if you are not tracking your player, your child, within these amounts, realizing that between 60 feet and 150 feet average for hitting, that's within 4 years of difference. Okay, so be realistic of tracking the performance of your player. Now for the 50-70 field dimensions, the outfield fence is still at 200 feet. Once you get into the senior levels of Little League definition, the outfield fences are pushed back to 300. That's everyone from 14U to 18U. Most of your high school stadiums are going to be longer than that at center field. Okay, they're going to be in that 320 to 360 foot range. Once you start to get into the college level, again, that kind of is taken over by WIAA, the Major League Baseball organizations, the minors within the Major League Baseball organizations. Their fields are going to be completely different than what is recognized at the younger ages. So if your player is dreaming to become a Major League Baseball player, an all-star, trying to get into college with some it's right on the tip of my tongue. Scholarships, so on and so forth. Realize that at 17 and 18U, they need to do this as an average. That's average, folks. This is not enough to basically get scouted out to the point where you're going to get scholarships to be attracted into different colleges. These are averages, average expectations of the players at the age level. All right, so once again, not trying to discourage you from you and your player continuing their experience within baseball, but just be within a reality that things change. And even with the equipment that they're using, whether it be wood, a USA, USSSA, or BBCOR bat, that will change their performance on the field. Their swing mechanics to remain the same, their arm strength, their eye to hand coordination might be outstanding, but the equipment will not necessarily perform as much. Now, real quick, to leave off on this video, like I said, I'm going to do a few of these. This one is just for the hitting and the field sizes. We're going to get into The baseball bats specifically, the different lengths, sizes, how to fit them to your player, the differentiation between a wooden bat, the USA stamp, USSSA, the BBCOR, the performance of those bats, what they're restricted to within the industry. Obviously, wooden baseball bats, there's not really much that you can do to modify them other than the illegal modification of corking the bats. There's multiple different variations of baseball bats out there, especially within wood, either Louisville, Mariachi, Rawlings, and a multitude of other smaller known manufacturers, even a local manufacturer you might have in your area. Depending on the quality of wood they get their hands on, their turning radiuses and profile of the baseball bat, how good the actual grain structure is within the bat. Baseball bats are all over the board. They're not going to be so consistent that you can pick them up and you know from one to another on a shelf if they're going to be within a half an ounce of each other. You could be all over the place. When it comes to the alloy composite aluminum bats, the length and the drop ratio, we'll get into that discussion exactly what that means, because it's not very accurate. Once again, it changes from manufacturers and the different practices. So we'll be getting into the wooden bats that are acceptable to be used in Little League. That's going to be anything from your recreational T-ball all the way up to your 12U baseball. Little League itself, for the Little League World Series, they allow aluminum bats. In some locations across the United States, their organizations will only allow wooden bats. Very few of them, but it's something that, again, a wooden bat is going to be a little bit more realistic, especially when you get to the older ages when wooden bats become the norm. Even in the college level, where wooden bats become norm, especially with the summer college level junior baseball leagues. There's no longer aluminum allowed at that point or up. So we'll look forward to that in the next video. We'll go over the exact way that they determine the difference between a USA, USSSA, BBCOR bats, the different profiles of the bats, whether it's an end-loaded or a balanced bat, the diameter and restrictions in the bat sizes, 2 5/8, 2 3/4, 2 1/4. We're going to be covering all that in the next video. So hopefully this is just a starter to help you understand, to realize if your player is truly a all-star or if they are the average according to other players across the nation. Once again, folks, leave you off on this. These are AI generated average numbers. The field sizes can be altered depending on the organization that you are playing for or what field or diamond they have available to actually carry out the baseball game too. So with that, let you go. We'll catch you on the backside with the other modifications that can be done, rules and regulations, and the designations for each level of play. Have a good one.